Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into something that, well, it touches pretty much all of our lives.
Hmm.
Whether you're sitting in a classroom, maybe standing at the front of one, or, just fascinated by how we learn.
Right. Exams.
Exactly, exams. Specifically, we're rethinking those traditional exams and exploring what the future of assessment could really look like.
And our guide for this journey, this deep dive, comes from some really interesting material, excerpts from Rethinking Exams, Future Class Assessment.
Yeah, it gives us a great lens on the history, the impact, and some, frankly, quite intriguing possibilities for how we evaluate learning.
So our mission today is really to pull out the key insights, understand why the old exam system is under such scrutiny now.
And what new approaches are starting to, gain some real momentum.
Exactly. So we're going to tackle questions like, are those exams many of us grew up with still the right tool for, well, today's world?
What are the real costs,
Ah.
the maybe hidden costs of relying so heavily on them?
And what are the concrete alternatives?
Yeah.
Things people are actually trying.
How does technology fit in? That's a big one.
Definitely. And ultimately, what does all this potential change mean for you listening? Whether you're a student, an educator, or just interested.
It's fascinating, I think, to start right at the beginning. This material points out that the modern exam system, the one we mostly know,
Yeah.
it was really shaped during a pretty specific time, the industrial age.
Right. And that makes so much sense when you think about the goals of education back then. The material kind of describes it as, well, largely training workers.
Not necessarily nurturing deep thinkers, right?
Precisely. The drive was efficiency, standardization. How do you quickly get a number, a rank, a result for loads of people?
Testing everyone the same way. It was an efficient machine for sorting people.
Sorting them into specific roles for that standardized industrial system.
And if you contrast that with the world now, I mean, the picture changes dramatically, doesn't it?
Completely different era. We need creators, collaborators, people who can tackle messy problems.
And maybe most importantly, lifelong learners, people who can keep adapting.
And yet, we're still largely using an assessment system that, well, this material argues prioritizes memorization speed.
Recalling facts under pressure.
Yeah, it feels like trying to build the future with, tools designed for the past.
So it raises that core question right off the bat. Does that industrial age system truly serve the needs of the 21st century?
Which leads us neatly into the next point, right?
Yeah.
What this material calls the real cost of traditional exams.
Yeah, let's get into that. And we should acknowledge up front, tests can measure some things. Factual recall, maybe a certain kind of discipline.
Sure, they capture certain aspects, but the material details some pretty significant costs. Things that are maybe less obvious, but really impactful.
Like the stress.
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest is the sheer amount of stress and anxiety these high-stakes tests generate for, countless students.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And think about what that stress often leads to. The material calls it shallow learning.
Right. Students cram information just to pass the test, and then poof.
That knowledge often just evaporates right afterwards. It becomes about performance on the day, not lasting understanding.
It really doesn't encourage deep engagement, does it?
Not really. And another critical issue highlighted is how these tests can create or, worsen unfair advantages.
That's a huge point. Not every student has a quiet place to study, or access to tutors, or the same support at home.
And that one-size-fits-all approach. It just assumes everyone learns and processes and expresses knowledge in exactly the same way.
Which, let's be honest, is simply not true. It doesn't reflect human diversity at all.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The material makes this point so powerfully. In the real world, outside school,
Yeah.
success rarely comes from sitting down and acing a standardized test.
Right. Success is about solving new problems, working well with others, communicating your ideas clearly.
Adapting to change, applying what you know in totally new situations.
So, if that's what the real world demands, should our main assessments mirror test-taking skills?
Or should they mirror the skills needed to actually thrive out there?
Which naturally leads us to look at alternatives. If traditional exams aren't the whole picture, what else is there?
What other ways can we genuinely assess learning?
The material digs into several pretty compelling models that are gaining traction. One that really jumps out is project-based learning, PBL.
Ah, PBL. So instead of just studying about building something for a test.
You actually build it.
Right.
Students might create a business plan, design an experiment, maybe produce a podcast like this one.
Or make a documentary. It forces you to apply skills in a real-world kind of context. and present your work.
It's about the process and the authentic outcome, putting knowledge into action.
That's a great way to put it. Another alternative discussed is portfolios.
Right, portfolios. So this is where students collect their best work over time, writing samples, maybe code they've written, art, videos.
And crucially, they reflect on it. It's not just a folder of stuff.
Exactly. The reflection piece is key. It shows growth, self-awareness, the ability to curate and explain your work.
And while they've always been common in creative fields, the material notes they're expanding, they offer a much richer picture than just a test score.
A richer picture of skills and development over time.
Yeah. Then there are performance tasks.
Ah, yes. These are pretty cool. They basically present students with complex, real-world challenges to solve.
Like what? Give us an example.
Okay, imagine being asked to design a sustainable city layout or analyze news articles to spot fake news.
Or maybe plan a community health campaign using actual local data
Exactly. The focus shifts from just recalling facts about the problem.
to actually thinking through and solving the problem, demonstrating the process of thinking.
Precisely. And finally, the material touches on self and peer assessment.
So students evaluating their own work and their classmates' work.
Yeah, using clear criteria, like rubrics. And this isn't just about grading, it's a skill-building exercise in itself.
How so?
Well, learning to assess constructively builds critical thinking. It builds self-awareness about your own learning.
And accountability too, I imagine.
Definitely. And the material emphasizes these alternatives aren't soft. They're often deeper, more rigorous forms of assessment.
And they connect much more directly to those real-world skills we keep talking about.
What's really exciting here, too, is how technology is playing a role.
Yeah.
It's making these alternatives more feasible, maybe even more powerful.
Yeah, new tools are enabling much smarter ways to assess learning.
I found the discussion on AI tutors really fascinating. The idea that AI could potentially analyze how a student is trying to solve a problem.
Seeing their thought process, their missteps, not just the final answer.
Right, that's a huge shift in the kind of feedback that's possible. Much more granular.
And those interactive learning platforms, they're getting so sophisticated now.
They really are. They can track progress in real time, adapt the content based on where a student is struggling.
And give immediate targeted feedback, like right when you need it.
Plus, you have the power of learning analytics, looking at patterns over time in a student's work.
Which allows teachers to see trends and maybe intervene proactively.
Exactly. Adjust their teaching before someone falls way behind, not just finding out after a big test.
It really highlights a key shift that technology enables, doesn't it? Moving assessment from mainly being about grading, judgment.
To being about guiding, supporting learning, the material suggests AI could act more like a learning partner.
Helping students understand how to improve continuously, not just telling them their score at one point in time.
So instead of just, you got these questions wrong.
The feedback could be more like, okay, looks like you're consistently struggling with percentages. Let's focus on that skill.
Yeah. It shifts the focus from just evaluation to really targeted support for growth.
So taking all this in, what does this rethinking, this potential for new approaches actually mean for the people involved, teachers and students?
Well, for teachers, the material suggests this shift could mean less time just grading multiple choice tests, freeing up time.
Time for what, though?
For more valuable things, arguably.
Yeah.
Like mentoring, coaching, giving that really personalized feedback that, honestly, only a human can truly deliver well.
And it probably opens up more creativity and lesson planning, too. Designing those engaging projects and performance tasks.
Absolutely. Tying learning to real-world challenges makes it more interesting to teach, I'd imagine.
And for students, what's in it for them?
More chances to show what they know in different ways, not just through one type of test.
Which could lead to a deeper understanding of their own strengths, their learning styles, moving beyond just being good at tests.
And crucially, building a much stronger link between what they're learning in class and why it actually matters, in their lives, in the world.
The material really emphasizes that when assessment feels meaningful, when it feels connected,
It stops being just that stressful endpoint.
right, it becomes a vital part of the learning process itself.
No, we have to be realistic here. Shifting away from something as, well, ingrained as traditional exams. It's not simple.
No, the material definitely acknowledges the challenges. Big challenges.
School systems are huge, complex institutions. These assessment structures are deeply embedded, decades, centuries even.
Plus, you've got external pressures, universities, employers, even parents. Many still rely heavily on those standardized test scores.
For admissions, for hiring, for judging school quality, it's a number they understand.
So those are big hurdles. And the material raises some tough practical questions.
Yeah, like how do you ensure fairness and equity when you're assessing, say, a huge variety of projects or portfolios? That's tricky.
How do you scale these alternative models effectively for thousands or millions of students?
And a really big one. How do you retrain and support teachers for this
Yeah,
and build the new tools needed?
these are significant, complex questions. No easy answers.
But the material does offer some optimism. It points to places where these shifts are already happening with success.
It mentions examples like Finland, Singapore, Canada, even pockets within the US.
Right. It shows that while it's challenging, change is possible. People are actively exploring and implementing these ideas in different ways.
So the conversation we're having now, drawing from this material, it feels like a really crucial step in continuing that forward movement.
Definitely part of that ongoing exploration.
Okay, so let's circle back to where we started. That initial question. Do traditional exams still have a place?
Well, based on the perspective in this material, the answer seems to be maybe, but probably not as the main event.
Not as the dominant central piece of assessment anymore.
Exactly. The vision of the future class that kind of emerges here,
Okay.
it isn't defined by that high-stakes test pressure.
Instead, it's characterized by ongoing growth, demonstrating real understanding.
Practical application of knowledge, showing what you can do.
Ultimately, the future of assessment, as it's described here, isn't just about sorting students or giving a final pass-fail.
No, it's about cultivating genuine thinkers, people who can apply their knowledge.
And creating systems that help every student find meaningful ways to show what they know and, who they're becoming.
And that feels like a much more powerful and frankly relevant way to think about evaluating learning for the world we actually live in.
And the future we're trying to build.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's leave you with this final thought to maybe mull over. Reflect for a moment on your own experience with learning and assessment. How did the ways you were tested shape your relationship with knowledge, your understanding of your own abilities, maybe even your sense of potential?
Now think about the assessment methods that truly helped you learn and grow, the ones that felt meaningful.
What kind of assessment environment do you think would best equip future learners to really thrive in this complex, rapidly changing world? Something to think about.